Good evening, and thanks for coming. How do you define success? What I tell the 8th grade graduates each spring is that success equals do your best plus pursue your passion. And I think that's a great definition for them to take to high school. And when I personally evaluate our school district success, one primary measure that I use is whether we're getting closer to achieving our vision or not. But as adults, parents, and taxpayers, sometimes we want a more tangible definition of success to evaluate our school district. Many media outlets feed that desire by publishing school rankings. Unfortunately, if you look at the criteria that many of those rankings use, you quickly realize that they don't necessarily align with your priorities. To better understand how District 67 is performing, the Board of Education, in collaboration with the administration, recently defined 7 key performance indicators, or KPIs, along with a host of secondary measures. These KPIs make up our district data dashboard, allowing anyone to not only see what we value most, but also to see at a glance how we are doing against those performance indicators. The 7 KPIs are, first, 3rd grade reading. 100% of our students reading at or above grade level by the end of 3rd grade using the Fountas and Pinella defined reading levels. In 2018, our baseline was 86%. Our next KPI is 8th grade algebra. 90% of students to complete Algebra 1 by the end of 8th grade is our goal, and our 2018 baseline is 83%. Our next KPI is looking at student academic growth. And the goal here is that all students will meet or exceed their individual growth projections as defined on the NWEA MAP assessment. And you see our baselines 2018, 84% at reading and 85% at math. The next key performance indicator is connectedness as measured in grade 5. So the grade 5 school connectedness indicator on the CSCI survey that we do each spring, our goal is to have that above a 4.0 aggregate median. Our 2018 baseline was 4.3, and we want to keep on moving that upward. Our next KPI, grade 7 student engagement. The goal here is grade 7 school engagement indicator on the Gallup poll will be a 4.0 aggregate mean. The measurement tool is the Gallup poll, and we're slightly below that for our baseline. Our 6th KPI is inclusion. 100% of students will spend 80% or more of their day in general education is the goal. We don't have a 2018 baseline. The 2017 baseline is 79%. And our 7th KPI is our bond rating. And the goal here is the district will achieve the highest AAA bond rating. District 67, not 78. Thank you. I wish you'd get my slides correct, Dr. Lynch. Yes.
Well done.
The goal is the district will achieve the highest AAA bond rating as determined by the S&P, and we currently are achieving that. These 7 KPIs are not perfect, nor do they tell the entire story of our students and our district. But I do believe they highlight a few of our most important criteria that defines our success. As well, they're tangible, objective, and easy to understand. And they're much more rational than most of the media's rankings. Taken in combination with the secondary measures, I believe the data dashboard is a great step forward in answering how do we define success for our school district, and are we achieving that success? The board hopes that you find this District 67 data dashboard valuable as it gets rolled out. We hope to continue to improve and refine the dashboard over time, so as always, we welcome all feedback. We now move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, so to show that we are amazingly aligned, I wanted to discuss with you our KPI process. So one of the things that is a priority for the board and also the administration is to create not just a set of key performance indicators, but also how to represent those most effectively to the public. And Jordan Salas and Ann Whipple have been working with a graphic designer that we have brought in to help us on that. So there have been a number of different iterations of this, and I want to show you the two of them. So the first draft is what I show you where we are today. What I'd like you to do as you see these things is, if you have thoughts or feedback for the board members or the public, to please email Ann or Jordan by Monday. We're going to continue to work through this. We want to have this ready as soon as possible for posting on the district website just in the coming month. So this was our first stab at trying to make a visual representation of a couple of our key performance indicators, and as so often happens, round one sort of primes the pump, and it's like, this isn't quite where we want to be. So we want to show you what our next phase, what the next phase looked like. So down below is the target, and then something like a speedometer shows this is what we are near the goal, but we're not at the goal. So again, to go back and see the comparison, you just didn't think that this showed us what we wanted it to show. So this is what reading, third grade reading and eighth grade math look like. And again, this was third grade reading and eighth grade math there. And to show you a couple others, this is the first go-around with social awareness, and then this is the second go-around with social awareness. And so this is where we are. So again, we will email this to the board so you can take a look at it, provide us level feedback. What we want is right direction, wrong direction, or specific thoughts on it. So we're not trying to write a letter with 7 authors, but the feedback is important to us. Second thing I want to discuss is we have been working over the past several months to address one of the hardest nuts for any school district to crack, and that is, how do we communicate effectively with our non-parent, or call it the non-user community, in addition to our parent group. We have really robust communication in many ways with the people that have a child in our district, and we've been creating ways that we believe are going to be effective at reaching out to the broader community and having them follow what we're doing and keeping them abreast of our ongoing work. So we've sent this out. We've got a list of roughly 500 people that we've identified. The first communication blast went out, and I'm happy to report that we have about a 60% open rate on that, and we also paired that initial communication with a brief survey. That's going to serve as our baseline, because in the coming months we're going to be doing various topics that we want to discuss, and our initial sample is going to measure how aware are you of that, how interested are you in these district initiatives, and then after a period of time we will resample them. The thrust of this, and what our ask is of our community members that are identified as key communicators, is that they take our information, they send it to 10 people that they know that are in their address book, that live in the community, don't have a student in the district anymore, and would possibly be interested in being one of our key communicators. And so this is something that we're really happy to be exploring. One of the things that has happened is the longer we've worked on this, the more ideas we got, and reaching out to local clergy, for example, the service organizations, Rotary, and so on. Those are other places that we drew names from. and we have what we think is a pretty solid list at this point. So, and we are assembling the baseline data on it right now, and we'll have our communication series that comes out, and then we will resample later on in the year and in years to come. And that completes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Questions or comments for our superintendent? Seeing none, we move on to public participation. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we move on to reports. We have no admin reports this month, so we'll move on to board committees. We'll start with the Board Education Committee, chaired by Jeff Folker.
Thank you, Mike. The Education Committee met for the first time this calendar year back on January 11th, and we met at Cherokee School. We were joined by Susan Mills, Rebecca Jenkins, Kate Cavanaugh, and Mike Simic. This meeting was a bit of a departure from our normal agenda as we combined our regular scheduled meeting with a field trip to 2 different schools to learn more about co-teaching within our district and how it works. Members of the Education Committee were divided up into 3 groups, with each group visiting a classroom at either Cherokee or Everett School to observe how co-teaching is being implemented within District 67. Each group got the chance to see teachers and learning behavior specialists working together in the classroom and gain some perspective as to how the various co-teaching models are being utilized within our schools. Following our time in the classroom, we then met as a committee at Cherokee School to observe or to share our observations and to learn more about how the use of co-teaching is critical to achieving the district's vision of inclusive practices. There you go. Some of the key observations and comments from committee members included the following. It was hard to tell who the lead teacher was in the classroom and who the support teacher was, but I assume that's the way it's supposed to be, which we've gotten reassurance that is the way it's supposed to be, so that was good. There was clearly no noticeable division within the classroom between students with IEPs and those without. Co-teaching allows for a lower student-to-teacher-to-student ratio and therefore more opportunities for small group instruction. Co-teaching also provides multiple teaching styles and personalities in the classroom. That gives students options when they have questions or need support. They might gravitate to a specific teacher with a particular style or personality that best aligns with theirs. From a teacher's point of view, it's nice to have another perspective and another set of eyes in the classroom as well. One of the committee members said, "I assumed that co-teaching meant having a second teacher in the room to specifically help with a student or students who have a distinguishable disability. Clearly, this was not the case. Not only was it difficult to understand or know which child or children had an IEP, assuming there even was someone in the classroom with an IEP, but both teachers interacted with all the students equally." I've personally found it to be a very enlightening and enjoyable opportunity to really see how our teachers interact in the classroom. It was, having not been in Cherokee School or even Everett School for a number of years, it was great to see how they interact with the kids. And I don't know, Suzanne or Alice, if you want to add anything to that since you guys were a part of the field trip.
It was a great experience. I think it was very good for those, especially those on the Ed Committee who have never spent time, a significant amount of time in a classroom as an observer, to just see what actually happens versus your memory of it or what your kids tell you about it. It's different when you go in to actually just look at what's happening. And the teachers who spoke to me briefly as we were leaving were clearly very happy with the situation, and the ones that we observed, with the situation and the work environment and what they were able to accomplish with their students and for their students as a result of the collaboration that they get to do on a regular basis. So I think that's all fantastic for everybody.
Okay. I would like to thank Susan and Kate and Rebecca and Mike for their participation and efforts in helping us put this field trip together. It was actually very impactful. And I would also like to thank the teachers who allowed us to come into their classrooms to watch them work. And I hope I get these names right. Liz Freibrun, is that correct? Is that how you pronounce Liz's name? What is it? Freebrun. Okay, my apologies, Liz. Jenny Nashin, good. Annette Miller, Amy Pirgalski. Those are the folks that we saw in Cherokee. And then over at Everett, we were with Stacy Obispo and Amy Fiore. So thank you to those teachers for letting us sit in on their classrooms and watching them work. We did recommend at that time that the board be presented some information on inclusive practices at an upcoming workshop, and I'm happy to say that occurred this evening. So congratulations, that was great. Our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, March 15th at 8 a.m. here at the West Campus. Any questions?
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions or comments for the Ed Committee? Seeing none, we move on to the Board Finance and Ops, chaired by Tom Ford.
Finance and Ops has no report. I will have something for you next month.
Questions or comments for the Finance and Ops? Thank you, Tom. Move on to the Policy Committee. Kent is not here tonight. Jeff or Alice, would you like to say anything?
Yes, Ken asked me to give his report, so I will do so. The Policy Committee met this past Friday, February 22nd, here at the West Campus to review Press Issue 99, which we'll be discussing and voting on this evening, so I won't go into any great detail. I will say that it was the fastest Policy Committee meeting in history. It lasted maybe 20 minutes because all of these policies are essentially just legislative in nature, so it's
So
really not really.
it'll be quick during action items, too?
It'll be extreme, well, you tell me, but I think it should be, yes. Anyway, that's it.
Questions or comments for Policy Committee? Compensation Committee, Rob.
The Compensation Committee sort of met with JSSC, and we discussed shared service compensation, and things are moving forward.
Questions or comments for compensation? JSSC, Rob just gave my report, so we're good there. Liaison reports, NSSED, Suzanne.
So NSSED last met on February 13th. There weren't a whole lot of things to report that everybody needs to know about, so take a look at my report. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But there was one thing that was talked about in great detail that was not in my report, that is somewhat related to the budget development in NSSED and to the strategic planning and to some things that are going on there. And that is that this year, the team over there has had profile meetings with all 18 member districts to figure out what their needs are, how they're being served, and to understand the district's priorities and goals, and to figure out how they can align the services and the programs that they offer with what the needs of the 18 districts might be going forward. And then they also did a follow-up survey to figure out what are the areas of focus for the cooperative as a whole across the communities, and then they did forecasting meetings. And all of that rolls up into the hiring for NSSED and the development of the budget for NSSED. The other big thing that's been going on over there is we have been in the process of hiring a new CSBO. We've had 2 people acting as interims this year and running things over there, and we have found someone, and so I will bring you information about that next time because their board will be acting on that soon. So exciting times, and the strategic plan update that we got over there was really quite overwhelming in terms of the vast amount of work that is taking place and just huge amounts of progress across all areas, and they are just really moving forward on pace with the strategic plan that they've set. So any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Suzanne. Any questions for Suzanne on NSSED? Thank you. Legislative Liaison, Tom?
No report this month.
Questions for Tom? Spirit of 67 Foundation, Suzanne.
The Spirit of 67 Foundation met, I made a mistake. Anyway, met on February 12th. Family participation district-wide is just over 64%, which is like a ridiculous record for 67, for Spirit of 67. Both Sheridan and Cherokee communities have reached a participation rate of 80% or greater, and have earned $1,000 founders grants for their schools. Everett is at 76%, so they're really close. I think it's like 8 or 10 families away, and DPM is at 59%. Donor revenue for the year for the Spirit right now is at $146,000, which is significantly above their budgeted expectations. The Grants Committee is currently meeting and is in the process of vetting the grants that were submitted, and will be presenting a recommendation to their board in April. The Faculty Talent Show at DPM is March 20th at 4 p.m. and 7 p.m., and that benefits the Spirit of 67 Foundation. And they are also hosting a night at the casino, Bet on 67, which will be at the Ferrari dealership, I believe I just saw in my email today, on April 26th from 7 to 10 p.m. More details coming soon. And their next meeting will be April 9th, Tuesday, April 9th, and that's the annual meeting, and it will be held here.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any questions regarding the Spirit of 67? Executive APT, Jeff.
The Executive APT Board for District 67 has met twice since our last meeting, most recently on Wednesday, February 13th, here at the West Campus. I'll share some information from both meetings real quickly. The big news is twofold. One, their annual meeting is going to be held this next March 13th, Wednesday, March 13th at Croya from 9 to 10:30. Guest speaker will be Larry Potash from WGN, and I think you're also giving your State of the District address at that time. So anyone who is a member of the APT, you don't have to be on one of the boards, is invited to attend. All are welcome. And that's always a great event. One of the key things that will happen at that meeting is we will be voting on the slate of officers for the 2019-2021 school years, and I'm excited to announce those here this evening. For APT Executive Board President, the nominee is Kristen Lee. For Executive Board Communications Secretary, it's Lacey Fiddler. For Executive Board Treasurer is Julie Benda-Helms. Deer Path APT President is Megan Engelberg. And Everett APT President, the nominee is J.C. Rhodes. So those folks will be voted on at the annual meeting, so please come out and support that. Two other items that I thought were interesting to share. Visiting Scientists, which has been a huge hit in the buildings, took place during the weeks of January 14th through the 23rd. The kids really get a kick out of that, and I think we all get some really good press in some of the local publications on all the fun things that go on during that week or weeks. Kindergarten through second grade focused on something called Mousetrap, and I guess in the assemblies they helped assemble or watched build Rube Goldberg machines to learn about physics and interactions and all that fun stuff. Third grade did Reptile Mania, which I saw in a variety of different publications around town where the folks come from the Wildlife Center and bring a variety of different amphibians and reptiles for the kids to look at. And then in fourth grade, focused on photosynthesis, which I heard was also a lot of fun. So that was a really neat thing. That's a really exciting opportunity within the buildings, and thanks to the Spirit of 67 for the monies to support that. The other big thing that I've talked about in the past, but I just want a quick update, is school supplies. As I think I mentioned a few months ago, the APT has decided to discontinue a formal school supplies program moving forward. Basically, School Pack has gone, I don't want to say it's gone belly up, but it's pretty darn close, and they are not providing the support that we require and that our parents require. So as a result, we will no longer be partnering with them, and the APT has decided not to offer a formal program. So we're kind of going back to the way it was prior to School Pack. There will be information sent out on a Friday flyer sometime later this spring to all parents with a link to a list of recommended school supplies by grade, by course, just like we had done prior. The APT has committed to talking with local retailers, Target, Walmart, and others, about how we might be able to get on their website or how we might be able to be in the stores with lists to help people as they go in and look at school supplies. And then they're also going to be making sure, let's see, we also talked about, with Ann, embedding the school supply lists and the school supply updates in the registration process, so parents have access to that early on. And then the other thing that came up is just making sure that the Mandarin folks are incorporated into the master list. At the end of this year, principals will be reaching out to students, as will the APT, and families about having school supplies left for a donation opportunity as well. So that's it. As I said, the next meeting is Wednesday, March 13th, the annual meeting. Again, anybody who's an APT member is invited to attend. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Questions regarding APT? Any other liaison reports I may have missed? We now come to our second public participation time. If there's any members of the public who would now like to address the board, they're welcome to. Seeing none, we move to our action items. First up, may I have a motion to reject the construction bids as presented?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Comments, questions, discussion? For the public, what this is, we've been talking over the past 6 months or longer about redoing the science labs. We're doing a pretty extensive remodeling and construction of science labs. We had kind of a general plan. Teachers were involved, administration was involved, architects were involved. We had a plan that we liked, and we thought we had a good sense for what that might cost. It was bid out, and the bids came back to us significantly higher than expected. So what this motion is to reject those bids, and the administration, in collaboration with all those parties, will go back to the drawing board and look at what our options are. Other comments or questions on this? Roll
And
call.
we have approved the funds, so, right, I mean,
Yep.
we did approve the money, so it's more than just a collaboration effort. We've actually
Yes.
committed funds to do this, so.
Thank you, good point. Roll call, please.
Dr. Lemke?
So aye?
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Lavert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, student fees. May I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 student fees as presented? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Lavert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, may I have a motion to approve the Cherokee principal one-year contract as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments, discussion?
Yeah, and I'm really very, very pleased. The contract is for Lucas. He goes by Luke Livingston. And one of the most important things that I do and that our central office staff do is create processes by which we attract and then hire exemplary teachers and exemplary principals to lead them. And this will be Luke Livingston is an assistant principal in Highland Park right now, and he is unbelievably eager to become a principal in general, but particularly for us. Really pleased to have such a strong candidate and somebody that his district was looking very seriously towards making their principal, but we happened to be earlier in the process and were able to pick him off, so to speak. So really eager to have him come on board. He has big shoes to fill. Jeff McHugh, Mr. McHugh has done a really great job at Cherokee, and Luke knows that he's coming into a great building with an amazing staff. Supportive, and a building that is headed in a great direction. The conversation with the Cherokee teachers, the overarching thing was, we're in a great place, we just want to keep on going, and have somebody come in and help us get there. So I think they're going to be really impressed with him. So really pleased for you and for us.
Thank you, Mike. Other comments or questions from the board regarding the Cherokee principal contract? Roll call vote, please, Eileen.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. Lavert?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next two items I am changing, rather than looking to approve them, we're looking to table them regarding the calendars. May I have a motion to table the 2019-2020 calendar as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion? We're looking to table these items. We'll be coming back with more information in March on them. Other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. Lavert?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Similarly, may I have a motion to table the 2020-2021 calendar?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mrs. Lavert?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, may I have a motion to approve the first reading of Press Issue 99?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments or discussion?
Yes, I have a,
Time's up.
Let's put the timer on the thing and you can go.
so I think Alice would agree. If you've all had a chance to look through these, everything in these changes, there's really no need for discussion. It's all based off legislative changes, new laws that are being implemented. So I don't know what the process is to suggest we waive the first reading. I don't know that we need to. I know there's at least one policy in here, which is the oath of office policy. There was a change in new board member oath of office that needs to be in place by May, so by the end of our April meeting. So if we approved it, I guess we approved it tonight, you could still do it again and, do the second reading in March. But the question was, does the board have an interest in waiving the first reading and going straight to a second reading?
May I just make a comment? Because we pay press to give us their policy updates, we are, in this instance, allowed to waive, only because we do this through press. For other policies, we couldn't do it, but because these are recommended by press, we are allowed, and because they're mostly legislative changes. Plus, with the board change for the oath of office, it does sometimes take some time for them to come back to us with the new policies, and that was why it was suggested that we waive the first reading, if everybody's okay with it.
So would I make a motion to waive the first reading and then let everybody vote? And if it says yes, we waive it. If
Make a
not,
counter
then-
motion.
all right, then I'd like to make a motion that we waive the first reading of Press Issue 99.
Second.
Comment or discussion on the counter motion to waive the first reading? My comment, I certainly will happily go along with it if everyone wants to. I'm personally of the mind that unless it's truly time sensitive, I don't really like waiving first readings. I just think it's a good precedent to give the public and us time to process, but I'm not going to stand in the way of it, certainly. So,
I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. I just literally, in going through these, there's literally nothing we could affect. It was all truly legislative changes and verbiage changes based on new laws or changes in legislature, so.
other comments or questions on the counter motion to waive the first reading? Roll call vote, please, Eileen.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So with the first reading waived, now may I have a motion to approve the second reading, I suppose, of Press Issue 99.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments on moving forward to approve Press Issue 99 as presented? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVert?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, may I have a motion to approve the human resources items as presented?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments or discussion on the HR report? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVert?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to the consent agenda. Any item from the consent agenda may be removed at the request of any board member. I'll now read the items on the consent agenda. Approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements, December 2018. Approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements, January 2019. Acceptance of fiscal year 18 audit. Minutes of a regular meeting and workshop, December 18th, 2018. Minutes of an executive session, December 18, 2019. Disposal of audio recordings, ad hoc superintendent evaluation committee meeting, April 17th, 2017. Would any board member like any of those items removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to have the acceptance of the fiscal year 18 audit removed, please.
Fantastic. Any other items to be removed? Great. We're going to move the acceptance of the fiscal year 18 audit off the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items that I just named?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please, on the consent agenda.
Mrs. LeVert?
Aye.
Mr. Folker?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the acceptance of the fiscal year 2018 audit as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or discussion on the audit?
So my request for moving is just to provide a little bit more detail behind it. Jen, if you have anything you might want to say regarding any issues that came up or arose as a result of the audit, any new learnings, any areas of opportunity, at the same time, anything we're doing great and we need to keep doing, just let everybody kind of get an understanding of any information or news that may have come out of it.
I'll ask probably Brittany to address this, and she works a little more closely with it. I will give you the basic background why she works her way up to the stand, though, which is this is the required audit. We're required by law to have an independent audit every single year. So we do employ Miller Cooper to perform that audit. It does cover our fiscal year from last year. as well. They provide all the information that we need to submit to the State Board of Education, as well as comply with all of our rules and reporting. When you talk about our bond rating being a AAA, they require certain reports to review as well as part of that review. So that all comes out of this audit process. But I'll let Brittany talk about any specific learnings from it.
Overall, it was a very clean audit process. There was a delay on the state's behalf. There's a GASB pronouncement, the Government Accounting Standards Board, that requires reporting of other post-employment benefit opportunities that are available. So when a teacher retires, they have access to teachers' health insurance, and an actuarial report had to be done by the state. That report was completed on time, but it was found that there was an error in that report. So at that time, when the error was found, all pencils down for every school district audit in the state of Illinois. So everyone was delayed until this actuarial could redo the report. So that held up us going final, according to the timeline, along with the other 800-plus school districts in the state. So as far as that process goes, along with the audit process is we get recommendations from our auditors on things they're seeing. So I'm trying to pull up my letter, so bear with me for a second here. Is they made recommendations, and they did discuss with the Finance and Operations Committee on a few items. One is to review our, looking at our segregations of duties in the business office, just around some processes that we're doing, so continuous improvement around there, and we are addressing those. They're recommending a capital asset appraisal report to be done. We're within our 10-year window with our liability company, insurance company, so that's just on the radar. And then they continue to provide to every school district that, hey, as technology becomes more and more prevalent, just be aware of your security, and Jordan and his tech team in the district is on top of that. So overall, very clean, smooth audit process for the year.
Relative to what's gone on recently over at the high school, I know one of the outcomes was a desire to look through some of our processes and how cash accounts are handled, and right, if there's going to be some kind of additional audit at the high school, is there a need for us to do something similar here at this district? Just to get out in front and make sure all those processes are clearly articulated and
That's something that we
understood?
should look at secondary. 67 handles a lot less cash, just by the nature of our business. Not that they don't handle any cash, but definitely a lot less than what goes through the high school. So I think any improvements that we make in the process, we naturally will carry over to 67 as well.
Other comments or questions regarding the audit? Roll call vote, please, Eileen.
Mr. Volker?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVert?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mrs. Sands?
Aye.
Dr. Lemke?
Aye.
Mr. Borkowski?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to FOIA requests. We had 4 FOIA requests since we last met.
One of which FOIA'd us, by the way. Which FOIA'd the board.
How about that? Local labs, commercial, status complete. Brad Racola, status complete. ProPublica, Illinois and Chicago Tribune, commercial, status complete. Illinois Retired Teachers Association, commercial, status complete. Announcements, Thursday, March 7th, parent-teacher conferences 4 to 8 p.m., full day of school. Friday, March 8th, parent-teacher conferences 9 a.m. through noon, no student attendance that day. Tuesday, March 19th, 2019, our next Board of Education meeting, 7 p.m. right here. May I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest School District 67 Board meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting
Aye.
adjourned.